Aric Putnam is kind enough to join us, talk about his campaign as he runs for state senate. This would be a DFL pickup. This is one we can pick up as well. Aric, thank you very much. I appreciate the time today.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. It's a real privilege. I appreciate it.
I appreciate one thing you do. You've got a great YouTube channel. My God, I watched the video that you did where you took on the mailer, the lie that was put out by your opponent.
I can't hear you.
Oh, well, you can't hear us? Oh, okay. Well, can you hear us now?
Yeah, that's a little bit better. Thanks. Sorry about that.
No problem. No,
I'm in my car.
Understandably, you're busy. You got to get around the district.
Right.
I was commenting on your YouTube page. Your YouTube, your videos that you put on out, the ones like that you go out there and you talk directly to the people. I love the one you just did where you take on your challenger who sent out the mailer that was a lie.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. It's unfortunate that we have to do things like that, but we kind of do, especially around that issue, and especially given how pervasive that particular lie is going to be in this election, not just in our race, but throughout the whole state. They're doubling down on this lie, and we can't let it go.
Well, I mean, a rational person can say this. I support police. I support police officers in the hard job they did. Minneapolis police, what happened to George Floyd should never have happened, and there's clearly some problems between the police department and the citizens of Minneapolis, but that is something that they will work out, that is not universal, and stop trying to create a fictional hate world out there to validate your arguments, because you're not doing anything. You're doing a disservice to the police, you're doing a disservice to the people of Minneapolis, and all you're doing is propagating a myth.
You know, that's 100% true, and that's one thing that really upset me about some of these ads, because I don't know if a lot of your listeners know about this, but I had 3 different mailers within the span of 6 days, all of which had a picture of me basically in front of a burning down Minneapolis with a smile, as if it was something that I was in favor of. And the text was the same in each one of these mailers, but the fonts got progressively scarier. So at least they're, experimenting a little bit with new messages. And then there's this YouTube video that's out there too that makes the same message, and they're doing it to me, but they're also doing it to Leader Kent and to Matt Little and to Lita Baroud. So it's both desperation, but the other part that bothers me about this is it's the exact opposite of what we need to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. The problem is that we need to establish reciprocal trust between law enforcement and their communities, and these kinds of messages make that much more difficult. So it's not just bad politics. It's bad policy, too, because it makes actually supporting police harder.
Well, and, the good news is this, is back in 2018, a major Republican talking point was when it came to Keith Ellison as the Attorney General, they were saying, and I saw this firsthand, it was, don't vote for him, he's a black Muslim man. And that was their entire argument against it, but even rural Minnesota saw through that, and he became the Attorney General. I think that people are not really tolerant of these lies that are out there to create division in this day and age. And don't say I'm willing to work with the other side when all you're doing is trying to create this incredibly incendiary false narrative.
Right. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's not helpful. And I'm hopeful, like you are, that people are going to see through it. And that's the other part about this, I mentioned that video, is that these kinds of messages are so transparently ridiculous and dishonest. Do they really think that we're going to fall for stuff like this? That a party, and that's the other part that's disturbing about these things, is they've been sent by independent expenditures, but they've also been sent by the Minnesota Republican Party. Yeah. They paid for some of these. And what do they think of voters? When you're shoveling crap like this at people.
Exactly. What do
you actually think of voters? It's just so cynical.
Well, how about Governor Walz calling out Gazelka, who's screaming about, you're not including the legislature as part of the process, and Governor Walz pointing out, we have had numerous meetings, and you have not shown up once. Not you, not a delegate, no representative. That's not on us. That's on you. But yet what's the argument? The legislative is being left out. Well, of course you're going to be left out if you don't show up for any of the meetings.
Right. It's not in good faith, and it's disturbing.
Exactly.
In so many different ways.
Now, I want to mention Senate District 14. This is basically St. Cloud, Waite Park. It's a good chunk of that area as you head up the interstate from the city is towards the northwest, correct?
Yeah, it also includes Haven-Minden Township. and St. Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of rural, and then with the sort of St. Cloud, Waite Park residential retail area thrown in there too.
It is an area that definitively has become more DFL over the time. I mean, once not that long ago, this was a undeniable Republican seat, but more and more that district and that area is becoming more towards the DFL as as basically failed policies from the Republicans permeate into the community.
I was glad to hear you say that, Matt, because I think a lot of times people assume that it's a demographic change, but it's not. It's about the failure to get actual leadership and representation to the area. It's not just that our population is changing. Sure, that's part of it. But it's also because people want actual leadership. I like to think of St. Cloud as kind of the Jan Brady of Minnesota politics because, we're not a big city and we're not a small town. And I think because of that, we sometimes get left behind, or at least we feel like we do. And we don't have assertive leadership up there to make the changes. And so I think that by and large, most people in St. Cloud would consider themselves to be pretty independent, but I think that their values are aligning more and more and more with the DFL, as they should, just in terms of their own self-interest.
And you said it exactly. It's not necessarily a demographic issue. I mean, look, Edina, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Wayzata, Plymouth. These are communities that their demographics might have changed a little bit, but they basically rejected the Republican Party because it's failed policy. It is failed policy. Aric is joining us once again. Aric Putnam, State Senate candidate for District 14. What made you decide to run for the Senate seat here?
Well, so I'm a college professor at St. John's St. Ben's, and I teach about civil rights history, social movements, that kind of stuff. But I never really cared very much for electoral politics. I never knocked a door till I knocked one for myself. And I say that not with pride, but with shame. But in 2016, a friend of mine encouraged me to run, and I asked my daughter about it. And she was 13 at the time. And she said, "But Dad, if you get into politics, you're going to have to talk to people, and people suck." And I thought, you're 13 and you're not wrong, but it gave me a perspective on my own cynicism towards electoral politics, too. So I ran for Minnesota House in 2016, but we didn't start until July. And then I was thinking about running again in 2018, and I decided that I would because I wanted to run a real campaign and see what we could do. And we were getting contacted in summer of 2018 by folks who said, well, Aric, if you get to 46% on the A side in that race, that's a huge win, and you'd be a shoo-in for the Senate. And we got to 48% in that race in 2018. But more importantly for me, there's something about just getting involved in politics and talking to people and building relationships, and you want to honor those relationships by continuing to advocate for the people that you've met. And so that's kind of what's keeping me in politics, is all the people that you meet in the process and the people you want to help. Mm-hmm. And you also get to learn just how bad it is the people who are doing it are right now. And you put those two things together, and you can't not.
By the way, a quick side note, you're a college professor. All my best. I mean, this is not an easy time to be a college professor or an educator in any capacity. All my best is I know that the students are, coming back in some capacity and stuff. It's one of those things. It's a learning process on all levels there. Obviously you're going to bring some, education chops into the Senate. What are some of the other issues that you would want to bring in and help champion for Senate District 14?
Well, so as an educator, that's kind of my wheelhouse in lots of ways. And my wife, she's the assistant superintendent of schools out here too.
Oh, okay.
So we're big school people. But I'm especially involved in schools because I was a horrible student. I was the worst high school student in the world. But having teachers who were supported and cared about me allowed me to change my future in profound ways. Mm-hmm. And our teachers right now are it's so incredibly hard to do that, COVID or not. My daughter was a freshman in high school 2 years ago, and she had 40 kids in her English class. And when I think of that, I think of all of the other issues in our community that don't get caught. Because one of the great things about public schools is that's where everybody has to be there together. And I think of all the mental health issues that don't get addressed, partially because of our schools and because of our infrastructure. I think of the physical health issues that are exacerbated by the stress that people are feeling in their classrooms, in their schools. Mm-hmm. And I think of the economic issues where people aren't being given the tools and the opportunities to improve their lives because our schools are burdened. So I start in schools, but when I think of questions of the economy and infrastructure and all these other issues, they all are just as profound, COVID or not.
Mm-hmm. And as well, you've got the unique situation. I imagine you have got rural districts. You've got a metro district there. You know, the funding issue as well is something we have to look at, because the way we fund our schools right now is, frankly, unless you're a wealthy suburban school district, it's absolute garbage for the inner city schools as well as the outlying schools in the state.
Yeah, you know, it's irresponsible how we fund education. And the other part about this that bothers me is that you see a lot of politicians brag about how much extra money they got to schools, and it's just not true. You know, they when I talk to a lot of, I see mailers from my opponent, from a lot of local GOP candidates, and when they talk about education, it's like they cut off your foot, they put a Band-Aid on your elbow, and they want to be hailed as heroes for curing cancer. It's completely unacceptable how we approach the funding of education, and it's got to be fixed.
Another issue, if I don't mind me bringing it up, Aric, is transportation. Obviously,
Sure.
you know, it's obviously the major roads. I mean, you're a major part of the supply chain here in whether it's products delivering, products going out. Talk a little bit about transportation. What are some of the issues you want to address there?
Sure. I think that oftentimes when we think of transportation, we just think of roads. And although that's what I'm thinking about right now, because I'm stuck in traffic on 94, I don't think that that's really the only place we should be looking when we think about infrastructure and transportation. The North Rail line is an important issue out here, and almost all of St. Cloud's in favor of extending it from Big Lake all the way up to St. Cloud so we can come down and see Twins games. So our folks of advanced age can go see grandkids. I think that transportation has to include transit in meaningful ways. And obviously there's always concerns of affordability, but you can't look at a project like that and expect it to be a profit-generating piece of public work. It has to bring people together. That's what public transit can do.
Well, and also it's one of the things we need to learn from the East Coast where they've done this. Why you will see in your district a dramatic increase with the colleges that are there, because one of the things they've proven is that if you can get a mass transportation option from one community to another community, all of a sudden your colleges become a much bigger option for the kids in the cities. And so if more people are going there, that's more people going to the colleges, more people potentially staying in the district afterwards, more income annually because of the taxes there. I mean, it is a long-term winning subject here, and it is something that definitively, if you look at those studies, they definitively show that, basically it would help St. Cloud dramatically to have that light rail line put all the way through.
Right. And it's also interesting just how much popular support there is for it, too. There have been a number of petitions and surveys done, and most of the folks up here actually want it to happen. And we've been hemming and hawing about it for forever, and every year it gets more expensive. So that's something that I think we need to take a serious and profound look at. Because that is something that we struggle with, too, in St. Cloud. And St. Cloud State has been struggling to keep students, which is unfortunate because it's a great school.
Yeah, and it would be the first. It would be the first major school outside of the Twin Cities core to be connected to the Twin Cities via a mass transportation option. I guarantee you that would be a massive benefit for the schools.
And for those who don't know much about the geography of St. Cloud, too, the current terminus is on southeast St. Cloud, and that's an area that's in serious need of redevelopment. It would change the face of St. Cloud in a number of ways. And I think that if we're thinking long term and for what's best for everyone in the community, it's something that we really need to take a serious look at. And we haven't been serious in our looking at it yet, which is what's disturbing to me too.
Aric Putnam is once again, it's a state Senate seat 14. Now this would be a pickup for the DFL. Aric, if you're okay, I'm going to post your YouTube page a little bit later on. I want people to check your videos. They're fantastic. But if people want to volunteer and donate, what's the webpage they should go to?
It's ericformn.com. And I should note, I probably should know this initially, that I spell my name funny, or I guess my parents spelled my name funny. I was pretty young when I got it. It's Aric with an A. So it's ARICFORMN.com.
All right. I'll put links to everything on social media a little bit later on. Aric, ARICFORMN.com. Aric Putnam, Democrat of the Day, State Senate seat 14. Aric, thank you very much for the time. I really do appreciate it today.
Oh, thanks a ton for having me. It's been really fun to chat.
Nice. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.